Spyro the Dragon was a huge success for Insomniac Games, selling over 1 million copies by the end of 1999. It was praised for its simple but fun gameplay and tight controls, so of course the logical thing to do when bringing it over to Japan is to change it.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
The Japanese version of Spyro the Dragon was so poorly received that it effectively ended the franchise in Japan. In fact, it was so bad that the only Spyro game released after that was Ripto's Rage, but the damage had already been done. The franchise was effectively dead in the land of the rising sun. So what happened? What the hell did they do to this beloved PlayStation 1 classic? Spyro the Dragon is a platform game developed by Insomniac Games for the PlayStation. It was released in North America and Europe in 1998. The Japanese version of the game was released on April 1st, 1999, 7 months after the North American release. The Japanese release was delayed because of the massive localization changes for the Japanese market. Immediately on startup, this game shines with a lot of character. You just don't see a lot of title screens like this anymore. Most are just plain backdrops with minimalistic menus. Even the Reignited trilogy has lost a bit of its charm when it comes to the title screen. A purple dragon comes swooping down, and this is our very first look at the star of the show, Spyro. I can't read Japanese, but from this menu you can do the usual stuff like starting a new game, loading a game, options and so on. However, if you press R1 and triangle on your PlayStation controller, you can access a secret demo of Crash Bandicoot Warped. Oh, it doesn't have that in this version. Moving on.
In the beginning, the 5 dragon families lived in their 5 dragon worlds in harmony. Their lives were happy and peaceful, until the day a Gnorc broke the rules. Gnasty Gnorc was an unpleasant creature from the bottoms of his dirty boots to the top of his unwashed head. He wasn't pretty, and his personality combined the short temper of a gnome and the bad attitude of a Gnorc. Gnasty resented the happy dragon families. More than anything, he detested their beautiful shiny jewels, which were not only nice to look at, but showed him the reflection of his own ugly face every time he did so. On a nice sunny day, Gnasty cast the freeze spell, trapping the dragons in crystal. He even began turning the dragon worlds into Gnorc worlds. But one little detail he didn't count on was the dog making noise and spoiling the recording. Snore. I don't care. Alright, But the one little detail he didn't count on was Spyro the Dragon. Spyro's so small that the spell shot straight over his head. Now Spyro, the only unfrozen dragon, must travel to 6 worlds, including Gnasty's industrial world, releasing all the dragons and collecting their stolen treasure. All along the way, he is accompanied by Sparks the Dragonfly, his best friend.
Jumping down into the field is where it will become apparent one of the major differences between the Japanese version and the American and European: the camera. It is a fixed camera, and it is awful. It does its best to try and follow Spyro, but unfortunately its best is still crap. It doesn't rise with you when you jump, and it doesn't pull in close to you when charging. So many simple platforming sections become a nightmare. It gets stuck on walls and other objects, and it will occasionally just point down to the ground. Worse, it isn't always angled high enough to allow you to see the next platform you need to jump to. You can manually move the camera left and right, but it is very slow, and you can't change the vertical angle at all. You can use the triangle to manually set the camera angle in front of you, but you must stop moving in order to do so. Even then it's a crapshoot. Why did they decide to change the camera?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
The developers were apparently receiving complaints from Japanese playtesters that the 3D camera was causing motion sickness. This camera is supposed to reduce the risk of motion sickness, but it makes the game much less enjoyable. Aside from the issues listed above, there are a few other side effects to the gameplay as a result of this camera system. Not only is the camera zoomed out more, but there are now more fade in and out transitions while playing. For example, when you enter a whirlwind, jump down holes and enter and exit levels. In contrast, the English release was designed to be as seamless as possible. Another quality of life change they made was these things. Signposts deliberately placed throughout the stages, causing the game to pause to provide hints and instructions whenever you breathe fire on them. Given the number of signs and how frequently you'll be breathing fire, this becomes very annoying very quickly. They are pretty much redundant anyway, considering the dragons that you free give you all the guidance you need to get through the game. Spyro's moveset is very straightforward. Pressing X will cause Spyro to perform a little hop. And if you press X again while in the air, he will glide. In mid-air, pressing the triangle button will cancel the glide. This is very useful because it prevents you from overshooting a platform. Gliding is used to reach distant high points. You will frequently find yourself looking for a high enough platform to glide to somewhere in the distance. Both of these moves are extremely useful throughout the game's various levels. Spyro has the ability to breathe fire. Pressing circle causes flames to appear in front of him. Flames can be used to defeat enemies and open certain containers. Using the shoulder buttons, you can make Spyro perform a roll. You'll probably never use this move though, at least I didn't. It's difficult to say what it was even meant to be used for. I suppose it could be used to avoid enemy attacks, but it's much faster to simply jump or run out of the way. And that brings us to Spyro's final move, the charge. And it's shit. Perhaps to compensate for the camera, Spyro's movement speed was drastically reduced. His charging speed is about the same speed as the English regular walking speed. It's also considerably harder to turn while charging, which makes catching these thieves or going in a new direction more difficult. Paired with the terrible camera, you'll find yourself bonking into a lot of things. They also took away your ability to jump while charging. The game begins in Green Garden Home, aka the Artisan Homeworld. This family of dragons provides the world with artifacts of culture and beauty. They write songs, create sculptures and paintings, and are the most gentle of all the dragon families. They are very social beings and enjoy getting together for singing and art viewings among the lush, rolling hills and green valleys of their home. Spyro himself is part of the Artisan dragon species. We start off with Spyro standing in front of a large green crystallized dragon. Walking up to it will free the dragon trapped inside. This is one of the main collectibles in the game. Releasing dragons allows you to talk to them and they will occasionally provide advice and, in the case of this stage, act as a sort of tutorial. Spyro's Japanese voice appears to be younger than the English version. Despite the fact that I can't understand him, I actually prefer this voice. It's less annoying and actually sounds more like a small child. He makes small noises when he jumps, charges, glides or dies, and he even exclaims a cheerful "Yatta!" when you find everything in a level. Simply step onto the circle and select Replay Dragon from the menu that appears if you want to watch/listen to the dragon again, if you can figure out which one it is, or if you know how to read Japanese. Which I don't, clearly. These pads also serve as checkpoints for the levels, allowing you to save your position within a level so that if you die, you don't have to restart from the beginning. Simply walk over the circle and it will flash a lighter colour. Any enemies you've killed up to this point will now remain dead, and if you die, you'll be transported back to the last checkpoint you walked over. This homeworld has a total of 5 levels. There are 3 standard levels, 1 speedway level and 1 boss level. Except for the boss level, you can play these levels in any order you like. Before the dragon head will open, you must first complete at least 1 other level. The levels are the same as in the English version, but the bosses and levels have different names, as well as a suffix of 1 to 1, 1 to 2, and so on. The names are mostly descriptive, but one standout has to be the first boss level, Wonder Pumpkin. I wonder what it could be. I'm sorry. Stonehill is called Speed Chase, Dark Hollow is Night Square, Town Square is Glide Town, Sunny Flight is Sunny Sky, and of course the best name change ever, Toasty is now known as Wonder Pumpkin. The first area is merely a place for you to get to grips with the controls and the general feel of the game. Aside from killing Gnasty Gnorc, the goal of the game is to free all 80 crystallized dragons, collect all the gems, and rescue all 12 dragon eggs stolen by thieves. The homeworlds serve as a sort of hub from which you can travel to other realms via portals. To reach our collection goals, we'll need to pass through these portals to gain access to the various levels. Green Garden has a total of 5 levels, as I mentioned earlier. Except for the Speedway, each of the 5 levels have a set number of dragons and gems to collect. Certain levels also contain thieves who must be apprehended in order to recover the dragon eggs they have stolen. The layout of the first few sets of levels are very open. There aren't many bottomless pits to fall into, and the penalties for failing any platforming are minimal. My favourite realm from this homeworld is Night Square, even though it's quite short. As someone who is only 5'1", even I would say this level is short. The level is set late at night and has a dreamy feel to it. This level's music is my absolute favourite in the entire game. I'm not a musician, so I'm not sure how to describe what I like about it, but I just do. This game's soundtrack is fantastic. Stuart Copeland, the Police's drummer, and a fairly prolific composer at the time, created it. Spyro was his first foray into video game music, and he created it by replaying the levels to figure out what music would fit each one. Although this appears to be something Insomniac were not aware of, as the tracks were placed differently than Copeland had intended. Each level has its own unique music track, which contributes to the level's distinct atmosphere. Many tracks have a strong emphasis on rock, which energizes the gameplay, while others aim for a sense of ambience or tension, which makes levels more intimidating, and they are all tied together by a melodic sensibility that ensures that playing and exploring doesn't become tedious. Perhaps the only issue is that the music can sound a little repetitive at times, with little variation in compositional style and instruments used between tracks. Now it's time to take on our first boss level, Wonder Pumpkin. The boss levels in this game aren't too dissimilar from the regular levels. They're a little bit smaller and have the boss waiting for you near the end. Bosses in this game are kind of a joke. They aren't really challenging at all. To take out the Wonder Pumpkin, we just need to flame him a few times. His robe's head and scythe will then disintegrate to reveal a sheep on stilts, the true boss of the stage.
I'm ready to fight you. I'm gonna throw him around. I'm gonna do a swarm of anger.
Flame him one more time and that is it. With that, we have completed everything in the Artisan homeworld. If we speak with the balloonist, he will transport us to the next homeworld if we say 5 dragons. We have more than enough collected at this point to move on. When it comes to progression, the game is very lenient, which is great for more casual players because if you get stuck, there are plenty of opportunities to pick up the slack. Those of us who choose to pursue everything, on the other hand, will be rewarded. For this retrospective playthrough, we'll be going for 100% completion. Jumping into the balloon, we set out for a harsh wasteland where dragons can hone their fighting skills. Combat Garden Home. I don't like their name. But first, let's take a quick detour to the Speedway. Except for the final homeworld, every homeworld has a Speedway level. They're all pretty much the same, so I'm going to go over all of them here. First and foremost, we must gain access to the portal. To get to the portal, we must jump on the pads that protrude from the water. Spyro will drown if we fall into the water because he can't swim in this game. This is a bonus level because it is hidden behind a secret. However, I believe the sign right in front of the water tells you about it in the Japanese version. In the English version, however, there is a dragon who will give you a hint about it much later on in the game. I know I keep referring to these levels as Speedways, as that is what they are more commonly known as, but in the first game they're actually called flights. I'm not sure why later games changed the name to Speedways, because flights does sound more appropriate, given that Spyro is flying. It's never explained why Spyro can fly in some levels but not in others. I mean, you can fly 2 levels, so maybe the Speedways... Did I just call it Speedway again? Perhaps the flight sections take place in the same atmosphere as the level portals that allow them to fly? I don't know. I'm not a scientist, or am I? During these flights, you must fly around and destroy or activate obstacles by either flaming them or going through them. There are 4 different obstacles per flight, and each obstacle comes in sets of 8. For each set you complete, you will earn 60 gems, and once all sets are completed in one go, you will be rewarded with another 60 gems for the flight, for a total of 300 gems. There are 5 different flights. There are 5 different flight stages in the game, each with different themes. They all play pretty much the same, with varying layouts and obstacles. They take a few tries to get, mostly because of the tight time limits for these stages. You have 25 to 30 seconds to complete all the obstacles in the level, which is not much time at all, but thankfully it's not as bad as it first appears. Whenever you destroy or activate an obstacle, you will have time added to your clock. You fail if you run out of time or hit the water. The controls are pretty intuitive. The analog stick controls Spyro's movement in the air. The flame attack is the same as in regular gameplay, and you can use the jump button to have Spyro ascend quickly. The camera in these stages actually acts the same as in the English version. Yay! But if you land on the ground, it reverts to the fixed camera. Boo! Because the stages are so open with a wide area of movement, it doesn't get stuck on stuff. The camera does a decent job following Spyro. The only places where it gets caught up is if you need to quickly turn around and going through tunnels. The only collectibles in these levels are gems. There are no dragons or eggs in any of them, so if these stages aren't your thing, they can be skipped, unless you're going for 100%. Combat Garden is the homeworld of the Peacekeeper dragons. These large powerful dragons enforce order throughout the world. They are the strongest of all the dragon families and know the most about battling their enemies. They live in the desert sand dunes, tar pits and ice caves and are always on the lookout for any creatures breaking the peace. There are a lot of enemies lurking around here. They also have cannons with which they will try to attack you. We can use the cannon to break open chests and create pathways if we take out the Gnorc sentries. When you flame the tents, the Gnorc inside will moon you, which I thought was the funniest thing ever as a kid. Yes, my intelligence is showing. I guess it still is pretty funny. The tar pits are a unique danger in this area. If you fall into them, you will drown. It's essentially just retextured water. Like in the Artisan homeworld, there are 5 levels including the boss and flight stage. There is Dry Canyon, which is actually the same name as in the English version. Cliff Town, which is also the same name as in English. Do they just give up on coming up with new names? Oh, the Ice Cavern is called Slip Cave in this version. Night Flight is Night Sky. As for the boss, Dr. Shemp is now called Dr. Cool because he is wearing sunglasses. The level's themes are fairly consistent, with the exception of Slip Cave, which is a bit of an outlier. Despite the name and the icy setting, this game does not have any ice physics. I guess I should say yay, because I despise ice physics. Poles with gems on top of them are scattered throughout this level. In order to knock the gems off, you must charge them. Simple. But, and this is a big but, the camera angle often makes it easy to miss these gems because the camera is a big pile of doo-doo. Gems are one of the most important things we'll be collecting throughout the game. To advance to the next homeworld, we'll need to collect a total of 120 million billion trillion. It doesn't say that. We'll need to collect a total of 1200 of them. There are 5 different coloured gems, each with a unique value. Red gems are worth 1,
Oopsie daisy!
blue gems are worth 5, yellow gems are worth 10, and purple gems are worth 25. Simply walk into a gem to collect it. Sparks, the little dragonfly that follows you around, will collect them for you as well. This is a great feature because you don't have to be right on top of the gem to collect it, which helps keep the gameplay flowing while navigating the levels. Gems can be found inside Gnorcs, inside flammable chests, inside smashable chests, on the ground, and as flight level prizes. You'll notice one of these pinwheel chests when you first arrive in Dry Canyon. To open them, simply flame them a few times to make them spin, and they will break open, releasing the gems within. Another unusual chest, I suppose that's what you could call them, are these baskets filled with fireworks. Lighting the fireworks will cause it to explode, allowing you to collect the gems. However, if you get too close to the explosion, you will take damage.
Oh, fuck.
Once you have killed a Gnorc and collected its gem, when you next enter the level, the Gnorc will return, but where you found a gem before, you will receive a silver orb. Collecting 40 will grant you additional life. Extra lives can also be found in these purple scaly chests. Each level in the game has a fixed number of gems. You can view your progression in the select menu. If you are missing any, look around in the distance as the gems will sparkle. Some levels also have chests that require you to find the key in order to open them. The chest is always filled with gems, and they are frequently the ones that are missing. While it can be frustrating to miss that one gem in the corner that you spent 10 minutes scouring the level for, the majority of the time the gems are hidden in plain sight. It's a lot of fun to collect all of them in each level. They are my favourite collectible in the game. After we acquire enough, we can make our way to Magic Garden Home. I hate that name. Why are the names so bad? This is the land where the magic crafted dragons live. Dragons of this family spend their time making magic artifacts used by all dragons throughout the rest of the worlds. They are shy around other creatures and like to be alone. They are very happy in their remote mountaintops, ice cliffs and caves, studying their craft in peace. We meet a thief as soon as we enter the corridor. This is convenient for us because they have the next collectibles we'll need to advance further in the game. We must first capture him in order to obtain the egg. Despite the fact that Spyro's speed has been reduced in this version, this thief isn't too difficult to apprehend. All the thieves in the game follow a predetermined path, and you can catch them by using the flame attack or simply charging into them. If you try to cut them off, they will usually turn around and follow the predetermined path backwards. Once again, the camera becomes the most vexing aspect of completing this task. The camera has a particularly difficult time in these levels as there are numerous tight corridors for it to become stuck in. Because of where he is, this can be extremely aggravating for this thief, but overall it isn't that difficult. I'm not certain, but I believe the thieves have been slowed down in this version. Perhaps this is why, despite Spyro's slower speed, they aren't as difficult to catch. The realms here are Alpine Ridge, now called Glide Mountain, High Caves is Fairy Kiss, which is a way more adorable name than the original. Wizard Peak is Wizard Peak, once again much better than the original. Crystal Flight is Crystal Sky, and unfortunately Blowhard has been renamed to Hurricane Hat.
But why? Why would you do that?
As its name suggests, magic is very abundant in this land. There are druids in this world who have control over the movement of platforms, walls, and many other things. Spyro's enemies were designed to be much more reactive than enemies in other platformers at the time. Most platformers up to that point would have the enemies marching back and forth or repeating a generic attack, unconcerned about the player or the world around them. In Spyro, however, enemies move around, fight each other, chase random creatures, and react to you as soon as you approach, either by fleeing or preparing to attack. This not only gives them more personality and character, but it also encourages you to chase after them or think carefully about when to attack them. There are several types of enemies. Ones who can only be charged and have armor that absorbs flame attacks, large enemies that can only be defeated with fire, large armor enemies that must be attacked with a flame from behind. The latter enemies are usually stationed in a narrow corridor, and you must wait for them to move before striking. Unfortunately, the camera in these sections is even more bothersome than usual, because you can't tell if they're turned around or not. There are also Gnorcs who are completely encased in metal armor and are extremely large, making them incapable of being charged or flamed. Fortunately for us, they're always near the edge, and we can simply charge into them a few times to knock them off. Speaking of armoured foes, there are spiders in the caves that can only be killed with the Fairy Kiss power-up, which allows Spyro Flame to destroy metal. However, because Spyro's speed has been reduced, getting to them before the power-up runs out is extremely difficult. This becomes one of the most difficult sections in the game when combined with Spyro's inability to jump while charging, and the janky camera that has you bonking into everything. If the spiders are in the wrong position, there is no way to reach them in time. Boo! This is also the first land where supercharged platforms can be found. Spyro executes the supercharge by charging across special ramps with glowing arrows. Running over multiple ramps will increase your speed, allowing Spyro to jump and glide to great heights and distances. The increased speed also allows you to destroy reinforced chests. This is where the inability to jump while charging becomes a little murky. So you can jump, but it has to be close to an edge. But sometimes it doesn't seem to work and you end up falling off the ledge. So sometimes it feels like you don't get enough height, and then other times it feels like you get way too much. At this point I begin to notice that when I kill enemies, they would drop extra lives. I'm not sure what triggered the game to begin acting this way. I was running low on lives at one point, but it continued to do so after I gained quite a few, so I'm not sure. Maybe it's Japan's way of saying sorry.
We are deeply sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry.
Anyway, once we've collected 5 dragon eggs, we'll be able to ride the balloon to a beautiful garden home. That's not exactly how I would describe it, but...
Okay.
The dragons native to this region are the Beastmaker dragons. These dragons are responsible for bringing forth all the new species of living creatures into the world. They choose to live in swamps, in the tumbled down wood platforms, on stilts in the mud flaps, and in hollowed out trees in the thick forests. Here they can find natural clay, roots, and other materials to do their work in peace. As a child, the Beastmaker homeworld used to frighten me. It's dark and foreboding. It looks fantastic. You could even say it's beautiful.
I love the beauty of our historic buildings.
This game's graphics are great, both technically and artistically. The PlayStation's hardware wasn't designed to support the kind of free-roaming 3D platformers found on the Nintendo 64, but programmer Alex Hastings created an engine that could. This is largely due to a rendering technique known as level of detail. Every level has two versions, a flat shaded world with no detail, and one with much more detailed textures and geometry that fades between them based on your distance to any given point, so nearby objects have more detail than anything further away. This perspective trick works wonders for presenting these massive worlds without the use of a fog effect to hide distant areas. This is supported by a carefully considered use of colours and architecture to naturally draw the eye and make each element easily distinguishable from the others. Spyro's distinctive purple colour is the most obvious example of this. He was originally green, but blended in too well with the early levels' grass, so he was given various colour schemes until they found a shade of purple that helped him stand out in any environment. However, this applies to the rest of the game as well. Gems come in a variety of colours and have a gleam to them that can be seen from anywhere, making them easier to find. Every level has its own environment, unique landmarks and beautiful skyboxes, and each of these employs a unique colour palette that imparts a distinct mood to the world. The stages in this round are Terrace Village, now called Mechanical Village, Misty Bog as Broken Palace, Treetops as Speed Tree, Wild Flight as Wild Sky, and the Metalhead boss is now called Ironhead. The Japanese don't understand puns. Is that a pun? No, it's not a pun, it's something else. Ironhead is a bit of a pain to take out in this version, once again because of the camera. To harm him, you must charge into these electrical pylons. You can't destroy them when they're electrified or Spyro will be electrocuted. However, the camera does such a poor job of following Spyro that it is far too easy to run into them and lose a lot of health. Speaking of health, now is a good time to discuss our little companion Sparks and how the Japanese version ruined him. Yay. Sparks is the adorable little dragonfly that follows you around. He demonstrates how many hits you can take before dying. Yellow represents full health, 4 hits from death, blue represents 3 hits left, green represents 2, and he will vanish when you only have 1 hit left before you die. While in this state, it is also more difficult to collect gems because Sparks will not be present to do so for you. To regenerate your health, simply kill a sheep or any other non-aggressive animal nearby. They will release a butterfly, which Sparks will eat if his health is less than 100%, and when he does, he'll move up a colour, giving you an extra hit. That's what I would be saying if we were playing the English version, but since we aren't, we can discuss another of the bizarre changes made for this version. Sparks' colour does not change. When he's at full health, he's green. When he's at half health, he's still green. To determine your health, you must examine the colour of the tiny sparkles emanating from him. This change is just plain bad. It makes determining Spyro's health status much more difficult. This is amplified when moving, and also by the colour of the green they chose, which blends in with the grass. This change is objectively worse in every conceivable way. This change appears to have been made so that he would stand out among the other dragonflies in this version of the game. Dragonflies are found in dragonfly eggs, which are bonus collectibles that can only be obtained if you have the Pocket Station, a Japan exclusive peripheral that when connected to one of the memory card slots, allows you to play mini-games using data from certain games. There is an egg hidden in nearly every level, and finding it will unlock a dragonfly that you can raise, train, fight and breed using the Pocket Station, in the same vein of Tamagotchis. The only advantage the dragonflies have in the game is that some of them provide Spyro with extra hit points. Unfortunately, I don't have one to show you, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't know this even existed until making this video. As someone who couldn't take advantage of this feature, this change stinks. Lucky for us, Ironhead decided he had had enough of this life and decided to forever sleep himself. Yay! Speed Tree is considered by some to be the most difficult level in the game, if not the entire Spyro series. Honestly, I was dreading this level because of how difficult Spyro is to control while charging. There are a number of supercharged ramps that you must jump between in order to gain enough height to reach certain areas. It's very easy to make a mistake and miss a jump. As annoying as this level can be, it wasn't nearly as bad as I was expecting. Rescuing 50 dragons allows us to move on to the next homeworld, and it wasn't until we got to Dream Garden that I realised that I was worried about the completely wrong level. Welcome to Dream Garden Home. The dragons of this world are the Dreamweaver dragons. These dragons are the peacekeepers of the night. They fly through the dreams of other creatures of the world, making sure that no nightmares bother dragons while they are sleeping. Anyone who has bad dreams at night can call on these dragons for help. The majority of this realm is made up of floating platforms and castles, so there are numerous opportunities to fall to your death. Fortunately, the gliding mechanics remain mostly intact. The levels in this homeworld are Dark Passage, now called Nightmare Road, Lofty Castle, now Fairy Trap, Haunted Castle is Ghost Armor, Icy Flight is Icy Sky, and the boss Jaques is now called Amazing Box. One of the major gimmicks for these levels are the enemies that change between forms, one large and almost invincible, the other small and weak. The way to alter their state is by flaming the fool with a lamp, or by simply waiting for them to change. Ghost Armor, better known as Haunted Towers, is the most frustrating level in the entire game. Every problem that the Japanese version has just culminates in this level, making it one of the worst gaming experiences I have ever had with this franchise. And I've played this piece of shit.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Because of the slow movement, it is nearly impossible to destroy the animated armors and metal doors before the power-up expires. The camera is so obstructed by the narrow corridors that the sloppy controls while charging result in a lot of bonking. Reaching the secret area in this level is such a headache, and when you reach it there is yet another headache-inducing task to complete. So there are a lot of knights in this big room. To kill their wizard we must race to the top before they are activated. However, the shitty camera makes it nearly impossible to see what you're doing. You either fall off or run into the knights, and you run out of time. And when I finally got there I couldn't tell because the fucking camera got stuck on the door! Thank goodness the fairy at the top's kiss is permanent for the rest of the level. Otherwise, I don't even think it's even possible to 100% the level in Japanese. The boss level is quite intriguing. There are fools everywhere and you must flame them in order for them to activate platforms. However, you must ensure that they are close enough to the correct platform for them to activate. The boss himself is a complete mess. He barely even fights back.
Oh, fuck.
After collecting 6,000 gems, the balloonist will take us to the final homeworld, Gnorc Nexus. There are only 5 dragons left to save, and they are all the ones we have already rescued. Their attempts to stop Gnasty apparently failed and they were recrystallized. This is the game's final homeworld, and it works a little differently than the others. First and foremost, the levels must be played in a specific order, and there is no flight level for this area. In addition, instead of the usual 5 stages, there are only 4. They are Gnorc Cove, which is called Gnasty Harbour. Twilight Harbour is now called Gnasty Bridge. The boss is of course Gnasty Gnorc, or in Japanese, Gnasty Gnorc. The levels are significantly more linear than the rest of the game. They are laid out as a sort of gauntlet to put all of your skills to the test, but in my opinion, these levels are easier than the Dream and Beast realms, because there is almost no need for exploration. They can be completed fairly quickly. The Gnorcs on the bridge are packing heat, just to make sure you know it's the final stage. We've finally arrived at Nax. We've finally arrived at Nax. See, I can't play it. It's Gnasty Gnorc. We have finally arrived to Gnasty Gnorc's, and we are ready to take on Gnasty Gnorc. This boss is more of a chase sequence than anything else. We need to make our way up to Gnasty Gnorc before we can attack him. There are thieves in this level that we must apprehend in order to obtain keys from them. They are extremely simple to catch. They have definitely slowed them down in this version. Take a look at how slowly they're moving. Okay, now we can take them on directly. Yeah, you don't really get to fight him, but keeping up with him and flaming him a few times will take him out. Although not particularly difficult in terms of combat, it is more of a test of controlling Spyro's movement and platforming abilities, which is appropriate for the type of game this is. After defeating Gnasty, he will drop the final gem we need to collect, and the end cutscene will begin to play. It just says Spyro being interviewed by the same TV crew at the start of the game. The end. Or is it? After the credits roll, we are back at Gnorc Nexus, where the final dragon can be rescued. Now that we have successfully achieved 100% in the game, we have unlocked the bonus stage, Gnasty's Loot, or Treasure Room as it's known here. Now this is what I call a completion reward. Even with the clumsy controls, this bonus level is a lot of fun. There are a total of 2,000 gems to be collected. In this stage, Spyro can fly around. You can't get very high at first, but as you progress through the stage, opening the locked doors and catching the thieves, you'll be able to fly around freely. The true final cutscene will play after collecting all of the loot and exiting the level, and the dragons start to get crystallized again. God damn it. The end. Or is it? Yeah, it really is the end this time. Or is it? Well, actually there is one more thing you can unlock in the Japanese version. You unlock a better camera, yay, and better controls, yay, and a better charge, yay.
I'm kind of retarded.
I had seen videos of this version of the game, and while the camera did look a bit annoying and Spyro did move a bit slower, it didn't look all that bad, but I was mistaken. The footage of this game does not do it justice in terms of how bad it feels to play. It's not just the camera that makes this version bad, and it's not just the speed, and it's not even the movement. It's when all of these things come together. The culmination of all these things make the experience of playing a complete slog. There is never a moment when you can get into the flow of the game like in the original. It's always start, stop, start, stop. Spyro feels so sluggish to control. You have to be constantly babysitting the camera, and even then it still gets constantly stuck on things. And for a game that requires you to look around for collectibles, that isn't bloody good. And forcing the player to complete the game in order to unlock a better camera and controls is a giant slap in the face. Hey, now that there's nothing left to do in the game, we're gonna make it more fun to play. Great idea, guys. Good job. After playing this game in its entirety, I can see why Spyro performed so badly in Japan. I'm honestly surprised that they even bothered with the sequel.